Hey, what's up everyone? TJ here. So today's video is going to be a little bit different from anything I've ever done on the channel in the past. Last season, I actually had the opportunity to sit down on a Zoom call with Batalion's creative director. His name's Danny. He's a really nice guy and he's pretty much been with Bataleon from the very beginning. So we just had a conversation that took a little bit more of a deep dive into triple bass technology. We talked a little bit about where the idea for 3BT came from, took a little bit of a more detailed look at what 3BT is and more specifically how it's incorporated into their snowboards, the different styles of 3BT, and what advantages you might get out of it out there on the mountain. So I know you guys have heard me talk a good bit about this tech through the reviews on the channel, but I thought it was really interesting to be able to sit down and just learn a little bit more about Bataleon and their triple bass technology directly from the crew that created it. So yeah, since this is a bit of a longer video, I'd be really stoked if you guys hit that like and subscribe button on the way in. Really appreciate it. And yeah, that's about it. Let's get into the conversation. Hope you guys enjoy. Welcome everyone. We're sitting here today with the creative director for Bataleon, Danny. Appreciate you sitting down with me this morning, or I guess it's evening over there in Amsterdam.
Yeah, sort of. My pleasure. It's yeah, nice to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you. And so we're gonna chat today about Bataleon. We're gonna talk a little bit about the snowboard design, talk about the company, the tech that goes into the boards, and just a little bit about the process. So yeah, looking forward to getting into some details here with you and just kind of shedding some more light on what Bataleon has to offer.
Yeah, let's talk some boards here. I hope I can answer all your questions. I mean, I am sort of the creative guy, but I've been here long enough to know everything about the entire design process, and I'm also involved every step of the way. But we do have our engineers that are like, when it gets down to the hardcore stuff in the factory.
Totally.
Then we have people with way more knowledge on the materials and the constructions and the methods and all that.
Sure, fair enough. Well, yeah, if there's anything, you know, as we're moving along here, if you can share like any insights as far as like some of the math behind the design or like any of the more technical details related to like the 3BT or board construction or design or anything like that, definitely would love to share that with people. But I figured maybe we could start just kind of talking about the philosophy that you guys have with your boards. I know all the boards on the line are positive camber from contact point to contact point combined with a various style of triple bass technology. So I know you said Bataleon's been around for about 18 years. You've been with the company for 16 or so years. Did Bataleon start straight to the market with the 3D design, or was that something that came a little bit later, a few years in?
No, it was 3D from day one. I mean, it's the reason why Bataleon was started in the first place. So the brand started 18 years ago, but the prototyping part of the shape and everything that already happened even longer. That was around 2000, kind of 2001 is when first prototypes were made. So yeah, the idea was to basically shape a snowboard to the form it takes when it's put under all the forces while snowboarding. Yeah, if you imagine, you know, example I often give is a plane wing.
Okay.
It's never flat, right?
Right.
Like it's shaped. And why is it shaped in that way? It's shaped in that way so because that's the optimal form with all the forces involved.
Right. So you guys, that was the idea with the shape, just with the forces involved when you're actually like pressuring the board in the snow to just kind of optimize the feel.
Yeah, exactly. Mainly in turns as the initial idea. So if you imagine a traditional camber board, when you drive it through a turn, the board will bend at the widest point. So that's what we envisioned. So it's like, okay, that sort of torque that happens, that bend at the widest point, we're going to pre-shape that into the board so that you're not working against that pressure and friction that's being created while going through a turn.
Absolutely, yeah. I've ridden a lot of your boards, and I definitely enjoy, the feel of 3BT. I feel like there's a lot of benefits with that tech and the board as well. And I definitely would like to go over the kind of different styles and flavors of 3BT that you guys offer, for your various boards on the line, and the various like purposes for whatever style of 3BT we might talk about. But yeah, before we get into the specifics on that, what are some of the general advantages of 3BT, other than just kind of optimizing that shape, do you think?
Well, the reason why we shape the boards like this is, yeah, to sort of make snowboarding more fun. And we believe that it gets more fun when you're sort of not working against the board. Actually, when you don't actually have to think about the board at all. You just think of what you want to do on the mountain, and the board will sort of, be there for you. So you're not working this board down the mountain. You just can envision what you want to do, and you just do it.
And so you guys have like tailored the styles of 3BT to cater towards like certain types of riding or certain terrain, and you build that into to the board. So I think there's 5 different styles of 3BT or so. Which profile do you think you'd want to start with? Like, was there an original 3BT before you branched out into various styles of it, or how did that all come to be?
Yeah, that is true actually. Like the original 3BT is most comparable of what we do on a sort of Goliath type of board. So the most all-round directional twin that we still have in the line. That was also in the line 18 years ago. It's one of the
No way.
yeah, it's one of the original models. And then Evil Twin came, I think, a year later, and that's also still in the line.
Those are 2 of my favorites on the line.
But when we introduced Evil Twin, that's when we also did a variation on the triple base. But maybe first we need to explain exactly the triple base shape, because that's also yeah, not everybody gets it,
Yeah, let's
Before
talk
we
about
get
it. So
into the flavors.
totally. Yep. Let's start there. So what is the 3BT design? How would you explain that to everybody?
Yeah. Okay, let me try and break it down. So, as I explained before, what we did was look how a board sort of changes its shape in motion when pushing through a turn. So at the widest point, it will bend more than at the narrow point. So if you lay that out, you will see an increasing uplift towards the widest point of the board. So what we did was divide the nose and tail section of the board, and with that I mean from the bindings out, in 3 sections, hence triple base. So now you have 2 side bases and 1 central base. In the central base, we kept the full tip to tail camber. The side bases got the gradual uplift from the bindings out to the widest point with maximum uplift. There's sometimes some confusion because some people think that the side bases are lifted over the entire board, but that's not the case. In between your feet, the board is actually flat with camber. The camber runs all the way out through through where the ramps start to lift up for the nose and the tail. So that's kind of a first tricky thing to get your head around, because it's sort of 3-dimensional shaping. So imagine there is basically a traditional camber. Also in between your bindings is just like a traditional camber board. Just when you go outside of your binding, you start to get an increase from the bindings out to the widest point of the board. So that's the description of the shape. Now, what does that do? So when you lift the widest point of the board, when you go straight down the mountain with your base flat on snow, you don't get this engaging of the edges, because the widest points are slightly lifted off the snow. Because if you know how a snowboard works, it has a side cut. By putting the side cut in the snow, you can make turns, because your turn will follow the radius of the side cut, right? Now with a normal board, when the camber is pressing down which happen to be at the widest point of the board, so all the forces are sort of pressed down to the widest point. So the board there wants to sort of constantly engage. It actually wants to start a turn, either left or right, depending where your weight is and how the slope is sort of forming onto your board. Now, when you lift the widest point, you sort of take that nervousness out of the equation, because now it will only engage when you initiate the turn. So if you don't lift the point, you constantly have to be aware, okay, what edge do I have engaged? Even if you go flat, you got to be a little bit on the one or the other side. Otherwise, yeah, the wrong edge will
Absolutely.
catch, and
Yeah.
and scorpions will happen.
That can definitely happen. Yeah, I love the way you're explaining that. I feel like that's a super common thing I hear, especially for, you know, more beginner intermediate riders. You know, having that issue catching an edge and not like being too sure how to deal with that. You know, haven't quite figured out like that you have to constantly keep a little bit, at least like slight pressure on one edge or the other to kind of manage that. And yeah, I think that's definitely one of the biggest advantages on 3BT in my experience. You know, having that, like you said, less catchy, less nervous, twitchy feel when you're flat base, but you still get that overall positive camber feel out of the board, you know, that more precise, energetic feel that people are looking for in their snowboard. So I love that combination. And yeah, I think, you know, you guys are one of the pioneers of doing anything with 3D bases, and you have one of the best variations out there, longest running as well. So I think it works really well, you know, providing that catch-free feel while still retaining that powerful camber feel as well.
Yeah, because that sort of brings us to this next common misunderstanding that can then come from that, because a lot of people like, yeah, wait a minute, you lift your edges, so then I have less grip, right? The board doesn't hold an edge but that's then actually
very common thing I hear. Yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, it's actually not really the case, because when you initiate the turn, and just when you just do that, the whole edge is engaged. So when you're flat, the widest points are off, but as soon as you do that, after you did that, you got your whole edge again, right? Because another way to make your board really loose on the wide points is to bend the entire board the other way, which became very popular and very well known as rocker.
Right.
So rocker is actually trying to fix what we already fixed before you had rocker with the 3D uplift, because you're just taking the widest point off the snow, except now you're losing camber. But when you shape it with triple base in 3D like we do, as you get more into your edge, the more edge comes in contact with the snow until you're on full jamming through the turn. You got the whole edge engaged just when you want it. So when you don't want it engaged, it's not there. When you start engaging it, it's coming. And when you're fully engaged, you got the whole edge.
Absolutely. Yep. That's what I found riding 3BT over the years. Yeah, as far as edge hold goes, you know, it does have a little bit of a different feel with the edge to edge transition. I actually like it. I think it's more of a smooth edge to edge transition. And yeah, once you get used to just the amount of pressure to actually activate that edge, you know, you really do get both benefits. And I feel like that edge locks in proper, just like it would, you know, on a traditional camber board like you'd expect.
Yes, because sort of the edge to edge is coming from when you lift on the widest point, and when you're trying to go from one edge to the other edge, you're not rolling off the widest point of the board anymore, because that's lifted. So you're actually rolling off where your feet are. So it also feels more in control, and it will go faster edge to edge, because you're not. And the wider the board becomes, and yeah, we've seen this trend lately with making boards a lot wider and shorter. Well, yep, the wider you make your board, if you don't put a 3D spin on it, you're getting a very sort of, yeah, you almost have to like, you know, work
way
hard.
More sluggish feel.
Yeah, because you're lifting it over the widest point of the board, which happens to be furthest away from where your feet are.
Right. Okay. So so as far as like the actual, so I've got the Evil Twin right here. So like as far as the actual length of the 3BT goes, and you can kind of see, I'll throw an overlay on, but you can almost see like a crease in the board where the 3BT runs. Goes out from the tip on the side base here out to like right about the insert pack where it tapers off there.
Yes. But you have to keep in mind that because we're doing a very gradual uplift. So the first bit of uplift is very little from the bindings.
Right.
And then it increases, and then it reaches the widest point. But because we take so much sort of space to make that gradual uplift, it also feels really smooth. Because if we would not do that and just suddenly go up, then that's not so nice.
It'd be like too loose. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, so you do see those things out there these days. There are more brands doing 3D, and yeah, when you just lift it a bit on the widest point, you're doing a lot because you're lifting the board off the snow at the widest point, so you're going to notice that. But we're pulling it gradually up from outside the binding, so when you're rolling into your turn, you get that smooth feeling.
Totally. And so before we dive into the flavors of 3BT, I guess, what do you think, Danny? Would it be more appropriate to talk about Sidekick first, or would you want to just jump right into like the differences between like jib and twin and freestyle and all that stuff?
We could talk a little bit about Sidekick maybe. Yeah, that makes sense, because Sidekick is sort of the extension of triple bass. It's actually something we learned later. Because before, in the old school triple bass, you'd get the uplift and it would sort of fade out into the nose ramp. So at the last bit of the nose, there was nothing happening, because in the beginning we're like, that's not really touching the snow. So, it's cool to fade it out there. But then we started thinking, or having this idea, but wait a minute, this is the first part of the board that is in contact when you change directions. So we did some thinking about that, and we ran some models and stuff, and then we discovered like, whoa, this is actually maybe really doing much more than we think it does. So then we started experimenting with uplifting, and before we make molds, we run a lot of computer models, and like it's not a lot of like trial and error, because 3D molds are quite expensive to make, because they're a lot thicker than traditional snowboard molds, and you need big CNC machines to mill these things out. So it's not like like we'll just try something.
You want to have it dialed in.
Yeah, so it helps that we always had and have still very smart people that can sort of calculate the forces and make it actually scientifical. So the Sidekick is just an extra uplift, and it happens after the uplift starts after the contact point, and it reaches maximum extra uplift at the widest point of the board, because the widest point of the board is actually after the contact points. And with the contact points, I mean, if you sort of put a board down, you would stand on it and you would notice where the board started leaving the ground. So that's what we call the contact point, because that's where you get sort of first contact. Because normally you have a gradual uplift, and with the contact point, it kinks up a little bit, and then it is maximum at the widest point. And why did we do it like that? Is because if you're on edge and you do a disruption sort of before the contact point, so towards your bindings, you'll notice that when you're turning, because your radius is not smooth anymore. There's like there will be a kink in it, sort of, from the extra uplift you're creating. But when you move the extra uplift sort of more forward outside of the contact point, you get the benefits of more float and sort of handling all the slush and unevenness in the terrain, because that's where the board's hitting the terrain. But you don't get it to disturb your radius. Am I getting too complicated?
No, I love it.
Okay.
More details the better, and I'll have the file to cut up and clean things up for the final. But no, I love you getting into the details, man, and just kind of sharing your thoughts on the whole design.
I appreciate getting the opportunity to explain it, because usually we only have sort of the catalog and the website, and you want to also not like sort of make it too confusing, but
no, it's
we can
great
get into it real deep here.
Deep dive. Absolutely, let's do it. So before we talk about like the benefits, maybe we've kind of been focusing more on the feel of 3BT and the functionality on like a hard snow surface, like a groomer riding park or something like that. But there's a lot of different styles of 3BT. So I know, you know, the length of the 3BT is pretty similar outside the insert packs, but you guys vary that center base width. You were talking about how that stays like kind of the traditional snowboard shape through the center, positive camber, and then you get that uplift out the side. So you guys vary the width of that center base, and then you also vary like how extreme that uplift, like that angle of uplift is that right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So yeah, do you want to start with like talking about the twin or the freestyle, where the size of the center base and the uplift is more similar or the same, or would you rather start with like the jib 3BT
Well,
and work our way up?
Well, let's break it down like this. Say if you break things down in directional twin, and twin boards, then you have 3 easy categories to talk about.
Perfect.
So right in the middle, we would have our directional twin board, sort of the most all-round board. So we want these boards to be able to do anything equally. So whether you're riding the park or you're getting off the slopes, it should all work sort of good. So for this,
right, and so just real quick, so directional twin, that's like between the contact points, it's on hard pack, it feels and rides kind of like a twin, but then it has a little bit of a directional outline shape with like a slightly longer nose, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we usually take between 1 and 2 centimeters of extra nose, but yeah, the radius and the whole setup that actually touches the snow and does all the work is completely symmetrical.
Awesome. Yeah, really fun style of board.
Yeah, it's what I like to ride the most because, yeah, I mean, I have the ability, of course, to switch up boards endlessly, but in the end, I rather just spend more time riding and less time changing bindings. So.
Yep. Yeah, I just I'm riding the Goliath as my personal board this year, and I've really been enjoying it. I think that that directional twin shape is a lot of fun and adds a little versatility as well.
Nice.
So
nice. Yeah, it's a killer board. For that board, that's sort of right down the middle of our of where we place our boards, so sort of from park to pout, and right in the middle you can have Goliath there. And then we actually take a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 approach to how we divide the nose and the tail section in 3 sort of equal width parts. And then when you go towards twin, we make the middle part wider, so the center bases get narrower. And when we go more towards freeride and powder, we make the center width more narrow, so the center base gets wider. So what happens, say we make the center base more narrow, the side base has more room, so also more room to sort of, the angle is usually the same, kind of, about 3 degrees.
Okay.
But when you make the side base is longer, it gets to run out longer, so you end up with a higher maximum height at the widest point. So that gives advantages with float in powder, and it making the center base narrower makes you go quicker edge to edge. All things that are you sort of prefer to have in a directional freeride board or a powder board. If you make it wider, then the side bases get narrower, so the uplift gets a little bit less in the end. And then you basically have a more of a wider platform, which is, yeah, feels nicer when you're riding park. So when you're doing 50s on rails and stuff, it's nicer to have a little bit of a wider center
Right.
width.
Yeah, a little bit more surface area to help lock in. You know,
Yeah.
if the person riding is into like getting pressed out on the nose or tail, they've got a little bit more of a platform to work with. Yeah, totally makes sense.
Also it's more of a landing platform when it's wider.
Right.
And but they all keep the camber, and then we also vary the camber. So when it goes to park, the camber goes down a little bit, and when it goes more into freeride, the camber goes up, and then it goes down again when you enter like powder specific categories. Because in POW you don't want massive camber, of course, to not drive all the force down when you're trying to keep the nose up in the front.
Right.
but we can do more camber than most people put on their powder boards, because we have those massive uplifts that'll do all the lifting, you know. So then we can keep the camber in there, and then when the board hits the slopes, yeah, it still rides like a normal board. So that's also an advantage that you get with this three-dimensional shaping. So the powder board will still carve on the slope, and the park board will also still be able to hold an edge, because there's also still a little bit of camber in there.
Absolutely, yeah. I get a little more versatility out of the more directional shapes. So there's still a lot of fun on hardpack, and I think a great example of that is what you guys did with the Party Wave and the Party Wave Plus. I think that's a real interesting shape, and yeah, they all have a great feel to them. That combination of camber and 3BT, I think, just has so many different applications and so many benefits. So it's really rad to see that, and across the whole line is just the standard philosophy for Bataleon.
Yeah, and we're just trying to sort of get people to try them out, you know, because it almost sounds too good to be true. If you're telling people, oh, it's better it's better in the park, but it's also better in powder, and it's actually also better for turning, and then the people are like, yeah, come on, man. Can't be better for everything. But yeah, since we sort of went the scientific way and sort of really looked at, okay, you know, what is the shape a snowboard should have? Should it really look like it was looking in the year 2000? And that's when we decided no. And I think we've been right, because we never had to change it, you know. Like, it's always like, even when reverse camber was on its most popular, and everybody was telling us, dude, make the reverse camber with the 3D in the nose, it'll be so sick. And it's like, no, it only works if you combine the camber with the 3D, and that's how we do it. And we won't make a reverse camber board, because in our opinion, we already fixed the lifting of the widest point of the board with our 3D shape. So yeah, you know, why make another solution if you have sort of already a good solution, or the best solution in our opinion? But yeah, as we say, don't believe us, just try it yourself, and yeah, see if you like it.
Yeah, I definitely encourage people, if they have an opportunity to get on a Bataleon or a Lobster with the triple base technology, to feel it out. Yeah, definitely do it. It's a unique feeling, and it's an awesome combination. You know, really getting a lot of added benefits and still retaining that camber feel. So real quick, I'm curious. I know you've talked a little bit about how you guys use like models to determine the shapes, and like you said with the Sidekick, before you made the mold, you ran a lot of models and things like that. As far as the benefits in powder goes with 3BT, are you familiar with like have you guys run models for powder performance, or like how that shape, you know, with the narrower center base and the wider side base, how that impacts like the board moving through soft snow and like glide and things like that?
Well, yeah, I know I like the engineer guys, they really like all that stuff, but I gotta say, it's really hard to model snow, you know, because snow is like, yeah, what is snow? You know,
there's so many different
snow can be like 10 different things in the same day, you know. It depending on how the temperature goes up and down, it goes from super fluffy to soft to slushy to clunky to frozen to tracked, you know. And yeah, to model all that, good luck, but you still need some really good riders that ride the boards and are able to give you like super valuable feedback, you know. And of course, that's why we ride everything ourselves, and we got our team, you know, that ride everything we make first, and let us know if we got it right. But we do try to calculate as much as we can before we go into the mold process, you know, because yeah, it's just, a lot of people think it's like trial and error. Oh, you just make some shape and then you ride it a bit, then you adjust it, and you make a new one, but yeah, that's how you shape the surfboard. But you know, because then you're shaping sort of the blanks one at a time. But since you're making snowboards with molds, it's a complete different process.
Right. Yeah. Realistically, yeah, you can't just be switching up that mold all the time.
No. So you really got to understand, all the things and all the forces and everything that comes into play with this. And of course, the benefits that we have this. Yeah, we've been steadily sort of improving this for over 18 years. So you do learn stuff along the way. You do start to figure out, okay, this is sort of the sweet spot for the radius for a board like that, and yeah, it's not, you can't model everything.
I'm sure, yeah, that can probably get so complicated. I don't know how much insight you have into this or like how technical the calculations are on this, but I think it's really interesting that you guys include this on your website for each board, whether it's like a Wally that's like more of a jib focused board or an actual, more powder focused board on the line. But you include like a little spec called float surface on the website. Could you talk about that a little bit and kind of what the idea is with including that?
I like how you got really deep in there, because when you notice that, then I know that you've been going. It's something
I love nerding out on this.
Sort of, it's something we're still refining, and but our thinking is, okay, when you pick a surfboard, you think about volume. Back in the day, you never used to do it, right? You were like, my board's a 6'1", and it needs to be this wide and this thickness, and that's my board. But these days, what you look at is your volume, right? When you buy a surfboard, and then the trend that sort of happened in surfing also came to snowboarding, where people started riding shorter and wider. We were thinking, okay, how can we make the people understand that a shorter, wider board has as much floating capabilities as a really long board, because the traditional snowboard thinking is, oh yeah, if it's powder, I get my big board out.
Right.
But now you could say, okay, I get my big board out, or I get my short wide board out, And
so that's
so when we made like boards we started with camel toe, and then party wave. These were boards you ride a little bit shorter than you would expect, and having the extra float created by the triple base also actually makes it that you can step your size a little bit down. But so that's when we thought of float ratio. So, and we did this so you could sort of compare how a shorter, wider board would float to another board that you might have some experience with.
But right, so that's kind of like based on like, obviously, like say for the party wave, it has those directional features, but it also has that width. So float surface is kind of is that more just looking at the actual surface area of like the base of the board, or do you factor in some other stuff as well in there?
Well, we've been talking also to some like surf shapers, and for example, like we did this collab with Bill Stewart, and we learned a lot from this guy, and he's like, I don't care about float, the volume, it's where you put the volume, that's what matters. And we're like, you're actually right, because you can have the same volume in two boards, but if one has more volume up the nose than in the tail, it will ride and float also completely different. Right. So for this calculation, we're calculating the actual surface of the board. So we run that through the computer with the outline, and it calculates the surface. Then we take in a factor for the type of triple base it has. So if it has, a higher uplift, it will get also a higher float ratio than one with a lower uplift.
Makes sense.
Then we look at the shape, whether it's directional, then it gets another sort of tweak on the ratio, because if it has more nose than tail, it will feel like it floats better in powder as well.
So all that's factored into that float surface,
and then also how the widths are distributed between max nose width, center width, and tail width. So you also take that into consideration.
Very cool.
Yeah. So then you have it's not just the actual surface of the board, it's also how the 3D shaping plays into it, and how the fact where the volume is put plays into it as well. Otherwise, it's hard to compare.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's awesome. I appreciate you kind of diving into that a little bit more. And I think it's great that you guys include that across all the boards on the site, just to give a little more clarity, you know, on how it's going to perform in various circumstances. And also that you're kind of drawing that correlation between surfing and snowboard design as well. I think that's really interesting to hear. So
yeah, we all surf here, so you know, yeah, you do all these surfing, skating, you know, it all feeds off each other, into each other. It's all in the mix. So
absolutely. Well, hey, I do have one last kind of more maybe simple question, like more history on Bataleon before we part ways here. But before that, was there anything else about like Bataleon board design, about triple base, or anything that you wanted to highlight or share with people to you know, that maybe isn't so well known, or you feel like we've covered it pretty well?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, you know, we really believe in this, you know, because we make kind of the boards for ourselves, you know. We want to have the best board on the mountain, so that's what drives us. And then we get super stoked if other people also get into it, you know. But yeah, we take it sort of one person at a time, you know. Try it and see if you like it. And we realize that, or we come to realize that the more experienced you are, the more you sort of have to give it a little bit of a chance, you know, because we
People
make the board so
ways,
optimal that it almost takes so little effort to ride it. And when you're used to years and years and years working, you know, with the wider non 3D and boards where you're really working the board more, and suddenly there is no board to work against, it feels a little bit different, you know. But if you give it a little bit of a sort of open mind, and then you go back to your other board, you're all of a sudden like, whoa, okay, yeah. So all I want to say is, yeah, you know, don't believe whatever I'm saying. Just try it.
Fair enough. Yeah, I agree. I think, you know, once you're able to try 3BT and give it a solid chance, you know, I have heard from a few people, it does take, like you were saying, if you're really used to that more traditional snowboard style, it can take a little bit of time to get used to it. But once I figured out 3BT, I loved it. I've been riding Bataleons for the last 3-4 seasons, and I plan to continue riding them. Yeah, that combination is perfect and has such a huge variety of applications and a great feel to it. So yeah, definitely recommend giving it a try if you get the chance. And last question for you, Danny, just a little bit of Bataleon history. You guys have a really clean logo. You know, I feel like you do a really good job incorporating that into all the graphics. Yeah, I see you've got like a painting there behind you as well. Where did the logo come from?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I was thinking, okay, yeah, the thing that makes this brand unique is the triple base, and I saw that, especially, yeah. And when people were riding Bataleons, everybody sort of recognized, like, hey, dude, you got Bataleon, I got Bataleon too, you know, like, sick. So I was like, oh yeah, what if we could turn the logo into a sign that you can actually sort of make, you know, like, and so I took the tree from the triple base,
yeah,
and made that sort of, yeah, like this. Everybody could make the logo, so yeah, that's
awesome.
Original thinking. 'Cause the old logo was like a circle with a cross in it, and I don't know. I wanted to make it more open for everybody to sort of, you know, more inclusive for everybody to sort of try it out and see what this is all about, and of course get, you know, into the crew.
Get more people on 3VT trying it out. Yeah, I think that's awesome, and I think it's a very eye-catching logo, and
thank you.
Yeah, can do the, like, I'm gonna start doing that on Hill, I think.
Yeah. Some people can't bend the pinky like this, I found out. So.
Well, awesome, Danny. Well, I appreciate you sitting down with me here this morning or evening over there in Amsterdam, and kind of doing a deep dive here into Bataleon and triple base, man.
thank you for giving me the opportunity. It was yeah, fun talking boards as always.
Absolutely. Yeah. Always enjoy talking about boards, talking about tech. So yeah, it was a pleasure, Danny. And yeah, hope to chat again, maybe sometime in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Hit me up if you want anything more or need to know more stuff. I mean, I can go on forever about this.
All right, and that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video and got a bit of a better understanding about Bataleon and their triple base technology. I'm gonna have some info linked down in the description, go into some resources on Bataleon's website related to what we were talking about, as well as a mix of boards down there featuring various styles of triple base, so you can check that out for yourself. And let me know what you guys thought about this style of video. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can leave any questions for me down in the comments as well. If you found anything we were talking about confusing, I'll try to get down there and answer any questions that you guys have. And yeah, other than that, please make sure to subscribe to the channel for more snowboard videos. I appreciate all you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in a new one soon. Later, guys.